So, great expectations. I'm not particularly going to be talking about what you might call mundane expectations. So, the expectation that a door will open it when you push the handle. Or the expectation that your car, your auto, will start when you turn the key. Or the expectation that when you walk on the ground it won't give way under your feet, and so on. We have millions of those expectations every day. They're assumptions, really. Same kind of thing. I want to talk about a more profound kind of expectation that many people have. And as you can see from the first slide here, that the greatest of all expectations and the most erroneous is the expectation that we should be happy. As Schopenhauer says here, there is only one inborn error, and that is the notion that we exist in order to be happy. Well, if you go through Spinoza's loop, happiness is pleasure, pleasure is greater survival fitness, and so on. The fact that we die kind of destroys that little party somewhat. So, how do we deal with all of this? Well, as Schopenhauer says in many places, if you can get it into your mind that actually the world is a kind of a kind of place of punishment. It's a better fitting picture with the nature of the world than that the world is there to satisfy your needs, and that everything you want will be given to you, and that you will become happy. Because if happiness is an increase in power, then obviously there's a limit to how much power you can get. Even Jeff Bezos, or whatever his name is, the guy at the top of Amazon, $140 billion he's worth. He's going to want 500 billion. In fact, he's probably going to want 1 trillion. And will he be happy? No, of course he isn't happy. Because no one is happy. And this is one of the problems with the New Age spiritual movements. The gurus sit before us and in some way try to convince us that they've achieved some state of happiness. It's usually given the title enlightenment or something like that. The catch-22 in all of this is that if you try to be happy, you will be miserable. If you try to become enlightened, you will stay unenlightened. If you try to find some kind of fulfillment, you'll remain unfulfilled, for reasons I'll get to shortly. So, when it comes to this kind of work, what exactly are we doing it for? Are we doing it because we want to be happy? Well, if you're doing it because of that, you're on the wrong train. There's no happiness here. There may be something else, but there isn't happiness. We're not pursuing happiness, which is a trite and trivial thing anyway. We might be after, God forbid, some kind of enlightenment. Well, as Shunryu Suzuki says, if you're sat there with some kind of aim when you're doing your Zazen, you might as well not do it. Final causes are the killers of everything. The final cause for me doing my meditation is to become enlightenment. You've just killed your meditation. The final cause for me studying all this stuff is because I want to become happy. You've just killed any chance of being happy. This is the way it works. The best way to approach this kind of work is to see it as entertainment. If it's not fun, then don't do it. If you don't enjoy it, if there isn't just some plain, straightforward enjoyment involved, don't do it. Because there's nothing at the end of this journey. As Lao Tzu says something to the effect of, the traveller is content with travelling and has no regard for the destination. Because there isn't a fucking destination, that's why. So, this statement by Schopenhauer is very, very profound, and I suggest it's, I think it's the next to the last chapter in Book 2 of The World as Will and Representation, on The Road to Salvation, I think it's called. In fact, that whole chapter is a wonderful thing. And he points out that the whole of our life is actually kind of unfolds to create the opposite. It creates unhappiness. You know, I look at my life and there are people commenting on both Patreon and on Facebook on the Corporeal Fantasy group just saying their life's been a total shit show. If I look at my life, yeah, would it be easy for me to get bitter? Absolutely. Absolutely it would. For a lot of reasons which I'm not going to go into. But those things are actually the positive things, to quote Schopenhauer again. The unhappiness is the positive thing, and as Schopenhauer says, we exist to become unhappy because the unhappiness shows us something. It shows us that this life isn't worth a shit. Now, your will to life doesn't think that, but your intelligence can come to understand that. And that's a big thing, because it leads to what Schopenhauer calls the denial of the will to life, which is another podcast. But so that's the aim of life. That's why, I mean, life is very kind in a way. It shows itself, knickers and all, and we can see that actually it's a fairly ugly, brutal thing, and maybe not worth all the time and attention. So maybe we should find some things that are a bit of fun. Entertainment. Now, the problem with entertainment is that if you are passive in your entertainment, you'll just want more and more and more and more. So if it's drugs, you want harder and harder drugs. If it's pornography, you'll want harder and harder pornography. If it's movies, action movies, you'll want more and more and more action. And of course, eventually it all becomes very boring. So your fun has to be active, has to be a result of your efforts. And again, you know, I mean, it's dangerous talking about it like that, because if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. There's no need to think about it. It's entertainment. You know, Johann Sebastian Bach said that he produces wonderful, wonderful music for two reasons. One is to the glory of God. Well, I don't give a shit about that. But the other one was for recreation. He didn't say to produce the most sublime music ever created or whatever. He just said for recreation. This is recreation. It's entertainment. So, it's a very important point, whether you are, you know, following this channel and doing what's on this channel, or whether you are involved in some other kind of movement or spiritual group or self-help group or whatever. If they're talking about some kind of final cause, some end point, just get out of there. If they're talking about enlightenment, creating a soul, or you know, or whatever, becoming blissful, just get out of there. There is no end point. That's the beauty of it. So, in contrast to our fairly ugly and contorted attempts to become happy, and by the way, to a large extent we can't avoid that. We can't help it, because the will to life is always seeking power, or the Kanatas. Always wants power, and power brings a certain kind of happiness or pleasure. So we can't help it, but we shouldn't be tricked. We have intelligence. The Kanatas is a dumb, raw, unconscious, unconscionable thing. It will kill 1 million people just so it can make $1 million. Or whatever. It's a brute. Our intelligence should, here we go with the word should, but our intelligence, or reason as Spinoza would say, is there to allow us to see through things, and particularly to see through the nature of the beast. The beast is still very powerful and all the rest of it, but we just see it for what it is. Anyway, this next slide, beautiful slide, picture of this young girl, just there, just looking at the waves coming in and out, and with her little bucket. No expectation of being happy. I'm sure that as she went to the beach, she wasn't saying to herself, I'm going to the beach, therefore I'm going to be happy. Because when she got to the beach, she might have wanted an ice cream, and her parents might have said no, and then she wouldn't have been happy. Anyway, all the same, she stood there, just, I assume, waiting to go and fill her bucket with water or something. It's just pure play. This is what this is. It's play of a particular kind. She's not sitting around watching other people playing. She's doing the playing. She wants to play. So, as Schopenhauer says, for the surest way not to become very unhappy is for us not to expect to be very happy. If you expect happiness, you are going to become very unhappy, which is why there are so many unhappy people. They expect the universe to cough up what they want. And then this beautiful, beautiful quote from a character called Merck, who was a colleague of Goethe, who said, everything in this world is ruined by the excessive pretension to happiness. Well, on the first slide, the guy jumping out the water, well, he's at the beach, it's a nice sunny day, it's probably warm, blah, blah, blah. I've got to be happy and pretend that I'm happy. I remember being on a holiday decades ago, 3 or 4, or 30 or 40 years ago, in Jamaica. I hated it. It's too hot, too humid, violence everywhere, armed guards on the hotel. It was a pay your money and eat as much as you want, so there were half-eaten burgers all over the place. I hated it. And I was with my family, so I had to do the family stuff, which I no longer have to do, mercifully. And in the evening they wanted to go and watch the entertainment, and I was sat there. Everybody was cavorting around, and I just sat there. And I was kind of watching it, and the woman who was the MC came to me and said, "You don't look very happy, can you look more happy?" I just said, "No, fuck off." Didn't make me the most favourite person in the hotel, but that was it. This wasn't something I enjoyed. Everybody pretending to be happy. Maybe some of them were, but I'm sure a lot of them weren't. In fact, I imagine most of them didn't know whether they were happy or unhappy. They were just playing out the role. So everything in this world is ruined by the excessive pretension to happiness. So So, to summarize that whole thing, this kind of work, in fact, your interaction with the world, your whatever you want to call it, your life, is just play. There are no final causes, there are no end goals. And in this kind of work, we're just doing this because we enjoy it. It's either enjoyment or, sign out, because there isn't going to be anything else than just, the fun or the entertainment associated with doing it. If you're looking for something more serious, I can guarantee you're not going to find it. Because joy, as Schopenhauer says somewhere, comes in uninvited. It just comes in. If you go looking for it, you'll never find it. Joy is quite different to happiness. Joy is a bit otherworldly, really. Whereas happiness is just, I've got a nice bigger car, nice bigger house, nice bigger holiday, nice bigger boobs, whatever it is, and I'm happy. Joy isn't like that. So that little girl, I would suggest, is probably in quite a joyful state there, with no attempt to achieve such a thing.